Recorded at the WNDU 16 News Now studios, this is the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold Notre Dame Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, columnist Tom Noy, Notre Dame football beat writer Mike Baradino, and WNDU's Jackson Neal.
It is the Thanksgiving week edition of Pot of Gold here at the WNDU studios, and we are all thankful because we have gotten to the end of the regular season with a game that actually means something for Notre Dame football. And who would have ever thought that as we sat here? I believe that day would have been September 11th.
September 11th, wow.
September 11th on that Wednesday when Notre Dame was 1-1, having lost to the Northern Illinois in its home opener, to say that they would rip off 9 wins in a row. As of now, November 24th, 2024, they're ranked number 5 in the USLMB coaches poll, number 5 in the Associated Press poll. The 4th CFP rankings will drop later tonight. We are taping this on Tuesday instead of our normal Wednesday because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So we'll see where they are at when those drop around. Is it 8 o'clock tonight?
I think 8 o'clock, yeah.
Is it 8 o'clock?
They change it every week, but
I think I heard
whenever it happens, I'll be watching.
There's a basketball game, I think.
So
beforehand.
Mike Baradino's going to have his TV on from like 2 o'clock on, and whenever he sees whenever he sees Joey Galloway telling people telling people that they should bench Riley Leonard this week,
That's
so
right.
he doesn't have
to
to play.
help Ohio State.
Come on, what are you doing? So, however, we'll see how those turn out. But this week, let's run through some CFP projections before we get into some USC talk, and then also rewind and look at Notre Dame Army from Yankee Stadium, where both of you went. I'm glad both of you were able to get in and weren't left standing outside.
It was a disaster zone there.
It was tough.
You know, they really never had any big events at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I was going to
say,
how would they know how to process all those
It's
fans?
been a month since the World Series, right?
They don't know how to get up. But, yeah, legit. It took people beyond it until the kickoff was, right around 7:15?
Yeah.
And people were still waiting. They're lucky they didn't have a stampede because people were kind of frustrated. The ticket prices were not cheap on the secondary market, and there were people who wasted hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for seeing 2.5 quarters probably.
Yeah, basically.
And by
the
then,
time they get in it, it's over.
So I
I
don't think they'll ever be made whole. Before anything else happens football-wise at Yankee Stadium, where I think the capacity is smaller, it's only like 47,000 for that. They need to get more staff, and it probably would help to let people in sooner than 5:30. They compressed it, and everybody was in the bars, I'm sure, around the Bronx.
Yeah, people were right around there.
And then all got the idea, we'll just pop in there around 6:55, and
Just
it didn't
slide
work.
right in. There
Did
won't
not
be any-
work.
No.
Come on.
Yeah.
It was not.
All right, we'll talk Notre Dame Army a little bit more. Notre Dame Army in a little bit, but first CFP projections for Notre Dame. Let's roll through these as they stood earlier at the start of the week. New York Times and Athletic has Notre Dame at number 8, hosting number 9 Indiana. Winner of that would get number 1 Oregon. ESPN, all 13 of their experts have Notre Dame in anywhere from number 6 to number 8. SI.com, this is the one that I would take in a second if I was Notre Dame. They have Notre Dame as the number 6 seed, hosting number 11 Indiana, with the winner moving on to play number 3 SMU. It's a pretty good matchup for Notre Dame right there. Bleacher Report, number 7, Notre Dame hosts number Tennessee. Winner of that faces number 2 Texas. CBS Sports, number 8 Notre Dame hosts number 9 Indiana, with the winner going to number 1 Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And the Sporting News, also a pretty decent matchup here. Number 7 Notre Dame hosts number 10 Tennessee, with the winner playing number 2 Texas. So again, another week, just go win a game if you're Notre Dame.
Yep.
That's all you got to do.
I like these. The fact that Notre Dame hosting Indiana is now so in play and looks like, as of right, I don't know, that's the one that I just keep circling. But you're right, that at SI.com where Notre Dame hosting Indiana, they go play SMU. There's a clear path to the semifinals.
There is.
There's a real clear path.
There's a clear path to a deep run. Yeah. That one Mike Baradino predicted way back at the start of the season. Notre Dame went in.
To the Final Four, and then I think I had them losing to Georgia, but we viewed Georgia differently, but Georgia's right back in the mix here. There's quite a difference, and tonight, I realize a lot of people may not hear this till after the projection comes out or the new rankings come out, but it seems like there's quite a difference between that Penn State, Notre Dame order, and there's quite a difference between ending up as the 6th seed in this thing or the 7 seed, because 7, you win your first round home game, okay, against a slightly better opponent possibly, but then you got to see a number 2 seed in a quarterfinal, and there's going to be a big difference between 2 and 3 quality. You see how, and certainly between 2 and 4 quality. 3 and 4 are almost interchangeable with the potential. That could be the underdog of that quarterfinal. 3 and 4 could be the underdog of the quarterfinal matchup, and there's no way that would be the case. It would appear if 1 or 2 is on your docket in the quarters. So yeah, that's the way to get to the Final Four, and then you worry about an Oregon or a Texas or an Ohio State. Feels like there's 3 teams that have separate. I mean, what a crazy run this has been. But correct me if you guys have a different approach. But it seems like Oregon, Texas, Ohio State are the 3 that could be not in that order but those are the 3 most valid national champions on paper so far, and Notre Dame is making it more interesting.
The best 3 teams in college football right now are Oregon, Ohio State, and Notre Dame.
Oh,
yep.
I don't know that we can say that.
I'm saying it.
Well, then I'll go back and say, find the tape from after Northern Illinois. We did a TV and here, and I didn't project that they would absolutely run the table.
Right.
I remember saying it would help them if Northern Illinois went on to win that conference. It did not do that. It did not win the MAC.
They didn't even win the following week. Didn't they get blown out at Buffalo?
I think. Yeah. So Northern Illinois, Thomas Hammock though I'll tell you this. I'd hire Thomas Hammock right now, or give him a little side job because he's doing very well with doing okay with what he's got going. He's a good talker. He gave Notre Dame the scouting. Remember. He went on every show possible that week and maximized NIU's big win, as he has every right to do. They had a bye week. And he let it be known that he had let Marcus Freeman know, hey, if you want to talk about what we noticed, how we beat you, I'm happy to talk about it. And he gave him a certain amount of coaching notes after the game, something was useful. As Purdue quickly learned, that whatever the flaw there was corrected quickly. Purdue's another story. And then just destruction. So you're saying Notre Dame is better than Texas at this point. And that's
Who's
based
Texas
on
beat?
Look through Texas's schedule. It's not great.
This is what it's going to be based on. Say Notre Dame wins, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
The losses to Georgia, which is excellent on any given day.
Right. But say Notre Dame wins on Saturday. At the end of the end of Notre Dame's regular season, I know there's another week with all the conference championship games and everything, but after Notre Dame finishes its regular season, there will only be 1 team left in the country that has a longer win streak than Notre Dame, and that's Oregon. Like, to go and run the table and win 10 straight when your back's not up against the wall, your back's through the wall on September 7th. Like, there was no choice but to go do what Notre Dame's about to do, and that's win 10 games in a row. And the way they're just throttling people.
Yep.
I'm saying Notre Dame, nobody wants to play Notre Dame, and it's almost to the point where they don't care if they're going to play the number 1 team, the number 2 team, the number 3 team. Who cares? They're like, put us up against anybody, put that defense up against anybody, and we'll go take our chances.
Strength of schedule, you can talk about the difference between strength of record and strength of schedule and this and that. But strength of schedule, my pea brain can understand that. Notre Dame's sitting there still at 78.
Right.
Even after beating this Army team that people, impressive in some ways and rugged and future, all, wonderful, great Americans. Bryson Daly was impressive on the field and postgame. But fact of the matter is that they'd played the second softest schedule in the country. As I look at it tonight going into the rankings, Boise State is sitting there at 81st strength of schedule. Notre Dame 78, SMU 77. But then there's quite a. Oregon's. This is weird. Oregon's 52nd now strength of schedule. But the big boys are like Georgia's played the hardest schedule. Ohio State's number 25, which might seem a little light. Texas is 36. So that Miami's 59. Indiana jumped all the way from 100-something to 51 just with the privilege of seeing Ohio State.
That's
so that thing is
Yeah.
fluid. And playing USC, which is more pertinent here to our conversation today, USC, I believe, was 16 maybe in strength of schedule last I looked, and they dropped to 37, and so this thing is fluid week to week. The committee, that's one of their data points, and that's one of the things Ward Manuel talks about every week, along with how you're playing now. And so, as you pointed out way back with the NIU thing, good to get the loss out of the way early. If you're going to be a one-loss team, it was more advantageous to have the early loss, even to a MAC team, than to go in 11-0 at USC and have the clunker there. I think you can make that case. So, yeah, still got to win. It seems, although, has there been enough losing, guys, in the SEC that Notre Dame can lose with dignity at USC and be a two-loss team that ekes
still,
in? I think they
know.
could.
Maybe a bubble. It's right on the bubble right there. And I think at that point, everyone just goes back to remember NIU. I think at that point, the NIU just becomes too big of a thing. Then they'll put an SEC team in over Notre Dame just because everyone remembers how big of a deal NIU was.
The national media wants to still ding Notre Dame for that NIU loss, and if they lose to SC, they're going to be like, "Oh, Notre Dame's out because they lost to a 6-5 USC program and they lost at home to a MAC school. That's really not that good. Notre Dame's out." Even though it is valid to say, does Notre Dame at 10-2 deserve stronger consideration than an Alabama or an Ole Miss? Or pick your team that winds up maybe losing this weekend. That Texas. What do you do? What do you do if Texas A&M beats Texas, and then Texas A&M wins the SEC championship game?
Well, Texas is still in as a two-loss team.
It would be a two-loss team.
It would be a two-loss team, but you can make that argument of what's Texas's best?
What's their best win?
I'm fascinated
Michigan?
by how the committee and Manuel's been asked about this on air and on these conference calls. How are they going to treat the teams that lose their conference championship games? When there's an upset in the conference championship game, can you fall in an upset and tumble all the way out of the thing? Because if you're going into your conference championship game, are they going to penalize some teams for having that extra data point? Because there will be upsets. There will be blood, but how much to be determined. But you can almost bank on at least two upsets on those conference championship games while Notre Dame's just kicking back and waiting to see how it plays out.
Let's set the stage. Saturday, number 5, Notre Dame 10-1 at USC 6-5. The game will kick off at 3:30 Eastern. That's 12:30 in Los Angeles. We get a day game out in the Coliseum, the first non-night game in Los Angeles for Notre Dame since 2016. They lost that game 45-27. So USC is now bowl eligible after they beat one of their rivals, UCLA, on Saturday. How about some series history? Notre Dame leads the all-time series 51-38-5. Series dates back to 1926. Jackson, you remember that 1926 game?
A couple years before my time.
Yeah. Notre Dame.
Howard Jones.
Notre Dame won 13-12. I believe they took the train out to Los Angeles.
Things can only get better.
Not that Howard Jones.
Oh.
The Irish are 20-24-4 all-time in the Coliseum. Last meeting, of course, 2023 in South Bend. Also Notre Dame's last win, 48-20. And USC's last win was Notre Dame's last trip to the Coliseum. 38-27, a future Heisman Trophy winner in Caleb Williams had something to say about that. So it's Notre Dame, it's USC. Don't really have to say any more about that, fellas.
Well, I'm fascinated by the psychological aspect of, generally speaking, when you blast a team one year, Notre Dame blasted Clemson in 22 and then had to go play at Clemson, and Dabo Swinney had a whole year to remind him, and in that week certainly had Clemson, and the fan base and everything was in a frenzy when we got there, and Notre Dame lost that game it really needed to have at Clemson. Death Valley, a different place than the Coliseum for all its grandeur.
Unless Lincoln Riley gets a call from Tyler from Calabasas.
That's right. That had to get it going that week. No, they played it beautifully. But what Notre Dame, what Marcus Freeman, based on what we heard from the players after the Monday night practice, everything compressed this week. This is masterful, and we'll see if it works. basically jumping right over last year, not like preparing them for a fired up USC program, which I don't know if they even get fired up anymore.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley, he doesn't push those buttons the way a Dabo would. But
Master motivator, not Lincoln Riley.
But they're trying. He's getting this team to plug into the pain of 2022, and you were there for that. And there was certainly some mockery going on. Now that's Caleb Williams. He's gone. Most of the pose and the fingernails and all that stuff. That's Caleb Williams. Can Caleb Williams hate win again for Notre Dame, even though he's gone and in Chicago and annoying people there? That's the fascinating thing to me, because how angry can you get at Zachariah Branch? Are you angry at Zachariah Branch? He's really fast. He's hard to
not
catch.
Really.
He's not had a good year, but they can not get mad at the fact that who's on the other sideline, because Zachariah Branch isn't really what we thought he was. Like you said, Caleb Williams is gone. What they can use for motivation is, remember how we felt walking out to the bus, and the people are yelling at us, and then the trip to LAX and the flight home overnight and how awful it was. I think that's where Marcus Freeman taps into it and says, we don't want to feel that way again, flying home 4 hours in the middle of the night on Saturday with everything that we have at stake.
So one of the things, too, that was said last night in the TV portion of it, Riley Leonard, boy, it's been great, all this Riley Leonard FaceTime.
We have too much, right? Whoever ever thought we would have gotten too much Riley Leonard? Did he talk Saturday after the game?
No,
he did not.
No,
He
did not. Only two. Yeah, that was a little surprising. But just Love and Schuler late night in Yankee Stadium. But he came in and he did the upstairs, and then he went down, of course, and did the downstairs TV. And on the TV part,
you TV guys.
He said, "Well, I grabbed a little video of that, and you find that too." But this was delightful, where he said, I know what it's like to lose a rivalry game. I lost to North Carolina twice when I was at Duke, and all I could think was, bless your heart, Riley. That's not really. I've seen the victory bell down there.
Yeah.
I've covered that. That's not the.
Unless it's basketball.
Unless you're playing that game at Cameron.
Yeah.
It doesn't
he was
really mean
talking
that
football. It does not compute. But they're trying to use that as motivation, whatever that pain was, because the NIU pain, that's worked beautifully. Plugging into the pain, don't forget the pain, don't lose the pain. He wants them to move the pain clock even further back to 2022. And were they... I mean, that was a weird night because, of course, I didn't make it because I hit a deer. But but that was a weird...
And I had to make it because he hit a deer.
I hit a deer, and the next morning tried to drive to Midway, and I got to like LaPorte in a car, decided you're not going to L.A. And so that was correct. But that was wacky. But, Drew Pine plays that game. There's a fumbled exchange. He's actually very accurate in that game, like Phil Simms, Super Bowl accurate. But do you think Drew Pine knew that he was already going to enter the portal as he took the field that night? And was Sam Hartman already lined up? And it was a weird thing.
I believe. I don't know if Drew Pine thought he was going to the portal, but there was smoke about Sam Hartman before that USC game, and you could see Caleb Williams. You could tell that Notre Dame defense had no answers for Caleb Williams. They got out to a big lead early, and they made it look so easy, where it was like, yeah, we've got this.
10-0. Yeah.
We've got this. And then Drew Pine started throwing the ball on it, but you just never got the idea that Drew Pine was going to make enough plays from his quarterback spot to keep Notre Dame in that game. Riley Leonard's going to make some plays on Saturday. True?
I agree with that.
There you go.
I agree with that. I mean, I just think for this year's Notre Dame team, like, the keeping the pain from the NIU, I think that's just every single week, no matter what happens after these like big wins. I even felt it after the Army game in Yankee Stadium. It's just like every single time Marcus Freeman talks, I feel you can hear that like that matter of fact, like, okay, we're just moving on. I think this is just a team at this point for Notre Dame, just on a mission. I think USC. I was watching some of that UCLA game. They got up for that one, but I don't know. I just think it's two programs just kind of having two completely opposite years. Speaking of pain, let's rewind to the pain that Notre Dame inflicted on Army with Irish Rewind. Okay, the two of you were there, Yankee Stadium last Saturday night. Notre Dame 49, Army 14. The Irish jumped to a 14-0 lead.
Then it was 14-7 after Army scored, and Army had the ball with 14-7. You're thinking, ooh, this is going to get interesting.
After that fourth down stop, yeah.
Right. And not so much.
really.
Notre Dame scored 35 unanswered. They win their 9th game in a row. The Irish finished with 275 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. Jeremiah Love, 130 yards, 2 TDs, 1 Olympic gold medal hurdle into the end zone for his first, I think that was his first touchdown.
That was the first touchdown of
That was on a little swing-
night.
Yeah, it was a
pass.
pass. Riley Leonard, 10 of 13, 148 yards. Don Schuler, one of my guys to watch in that game.
Good call.
Team high 8 tackles, was the defensive MVP. Army, 233 total yards. That's the 6th straight opponent that has gained 250 yards or fewer against that Notre Dame defense. It's the first time that's happened since 1983. And the Irish moved to 13-0 in Shamrock Series games. So kind of like the Navy game across the river in the Meadowlands. This thing was hyped, but it wasn't really that close.
Yeah, I think right from the beginning of that game, like you could just kind of see the difference in athlete just for Notre Dame just showing itself on the field. There were times where I think a Christian Gray had a couple plays where he was getting blocked on the outside by a wide receiver, and he still was able to just kind of shed it and make the tackle. Like even when Army was technically executing their plays correctly, Notre Dame's talent on the defensive side of the ball, they didn't have any answers for them. They weren't able to run the ball against them besides that one drive really.
Yeah, other than the fact, as we noted here last week, that there were 30 Texans on the Army team.
We didn't know that.
Yeah, I think someone
noted that.
That was your research.
Well, I'll tell you this: the Texan that ran 39 times, Bryson Daly, is a tough dude, and no nation on earth wants to see led the battalion he leads on the other side. Everybody's pretty jacked up about the video that I posted. He's just real. He's a real guy. But
he is.
Jeff Munkin also. It was great to. I could have left and started to write. I just wanted to hear what Munkin said, and I ended up writing the analysis.
You wound up
on
writing
that.
everything about Munkin.
Yes, I did. He was tremendous. Well, we know what Mark is going to say. He's great. He's great on this stuff. But but I was curious. How is this playing across the way? And one of the things, he had great respect for everything that they do at Notre Dame and the culture because they have the ultimate culture there at these service academies. But then he did, point out, it's hard to say Notre Dame is a measuring stick for Army. We didn't have a single guy that got recruited by Notre Dame. And probably after this game, Marcus isn't going to be checking the transfer portal to see if any of our guys are available. It's just the reality of who we are. I thought it was great, and I don't think anyone should take offense to that. I don't think he was angry about anything or feeling put upon, but it's just a gap. And so the 2 service academies, the 2 MAC teams on the schedule that going into the year, it played out almost exactly. It should have been NIU 2-point loss. Couple of stats. Now that I think I have this right, I did some math this morning. Notre Dame has not trailed in a game since the 7-minute mark of the second quarter at Georgia Tech. So the streak is at 277 minutes since Notre Dame last trailed. That's 4.5 plus games, and then for the whole year, because that was the first half of the season or first quarter of the season. The running thing was, well, why are you starting so slowly? Why do you need to be down 7-0 to wake up? But even with those early punches in the nose, Notre Dame's only trailed for 47 minutes and 47 seconds all year. 47, less than 48 minutes, and we'll see. Something tells me they're going to experience playing from behind at least briefly this week and maybe for a while at USC. But that's just fine because you're going to need to do that probably in a 4-game run to a championship.
I mean, one thing I wanted to also add, just the running back depth for Notre Dame, that Aeneas Williams run. I mean, what other, the level, having obviously Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and then having Aeneas Williams, the depth at that position, what other program could you find that 3 deep right now this late in the season that can make plays like that? That was really impressive to me. That's something I keep coming back to.
The Aeneas Williams run, watching it on TV, was like watching a Jadarian Price run at Purdue. It's like, wait, now this guy's going to go the length of the field and he's going to score? How many different guys are going to take the ball into the end zone for Notre Dame?
And he's so physical, too, as just a true freshman. I mean, that's something we saw in fall camp, and it's just, now throughout the season, it's just gotten even better. But, man, I mean, that's a deep position
Yeah,
for Notre Dame.
they're okay at running back because Keedron Young might be just as good as all of them.
Exactly. He's played his 4 games, and they're holding on that he's going to have his career here. So they're doing right by him. But come the playoff game, now that clock reset, you can play
as much as you
the
want.
rest of the way. And he I would imagine that's a possibility in the short yardage because they were stopped at the goal line.
Yes.
That was an odd series in that
was.
it had Price on the first first 3 downs, and then they brought in Love on 4th down. They tried to take him up the middle, which he can do, but everything was tight.
Just kept going up the middle,
and he went nowhere. So that's where that was that moment you referred to, and it was 14-7, and now Army had 98 yards. And how many plays, if they had marched down there to the tying, it would have been like a 25-play drive to tie it. And then everybody's
20.
just like, okay, we get it, But they are persistent.
So that's 9 in a row for Notre Dame. They're 10-1. They're heading to USC. And speaking of USC, how about a little pot of old? This is relatively old because we go back to November 24th, 2018. Number 3, Notre Dame 24, USC 17. This is known as the Tony Jones catch and run right down the sideline touchdown game. Myself and a bunch of other local media guys were standing on that sideline as Tony Jones caught the pass from Ian Book, turned and ran down the sideline to give Notre Dame. I believe at that point it was 24-10. USC got a late score to make it 24-17. But the Irish entered that game 11-0. Chance to cement a CFP semifinal spot. Sound familiar? Oh, by the way, they also played the previous week at Yankee Stadium against a ranked opponent. That year it was number 12 Syracuse. Notre Dame won easily. Sound familiar? They won that game 36-3. The Irish trailed early at USC 10-0. Like Mike said, they may do on Saturday. At that point, it was their largest deficit of the season. They then scored 24 of the final 31 points. Ian Book, 22 of 39, 352 yards and 2 touchdowns. Defensive back Julian Love, career-high 12 tackles. Notre Dame outgained USC 263-154 in the second half. And like we said, game was cemented when Tony Jones took that pass from Ian Book down the sideline for 51 yards. Bless you.
Sorry about that.
With 3:04 remaining to give the Irish the 24-10 lead. Notre Dame finishes 12-0. They go on to lose to Clemson in the 2018 Cotton Bowl 30-3. And now the Mike Berardino segment on where was Mike B on November 24th,
You should know. You should know.
I do.
I was right there in that little makeshift press box that when they were under construction.
We were sitting in trailers.
Yeah,
they were
well,
not. They were basically they were trailers.
It was so weird.
Office like you know how they have trailers in the construction
Yeah.
site.
Yeah.
That was the press box. They were trailers in the Coliseum.
It was pretty good sight line now. We're
It was
pretty
a
good.
great sight line. It was low level.
Where is it now?
It is way at the top. I believe it's the 9th floor, but it's awesome because it's open air, and you sit there and you're kind of in the corner, not necessarily in the end zone. You're on maybe the 10-yard line behind the Notre Dame bench, and from your vantage point, you've got the Olympic torch that you can see that starts burning at the 4th quarter. Downtown Los Angeles, palm trees on the other side of the stadium, and before it gets dark, you can see the Hollywood sign. So it's a hell of a view at the Los Angeles Coliseum.
And you get it the whole game because it starts at midday.
12:30.
Where was Justin Yoon in that 2018 game? Justin Yoon back in the news for me this week. He was the kicker for Notre Dame that USC game. Nailed a 46-yarder. And Justin Yoon, and I'm sure a lot of people in that era would like to have another shot at a COVID year and some NIL. But the fact that Notre Dame, with its issues with the kicking game now, Mitch Jeter in I think we can call this a slump now. I mean, this is a injury-induced slump, but this is a problem. And Justin Yoon put it out there, and everyone, the fan base, seemed to really enjoy his tweet that he was suggesting he was still available for a comeback. He might have some more eligibility. So I went back and I looked because I always remember Justin Yoon being really accurate, but maybe without the 50-plus range. But his career, just so people get this in perspective, his career percentage of accuracy was 80.8%. and he missed 14 times in his career, and he also missed 6 point afters as a Notre Dame kicker for 4 years, 15 to 18.
But
Mitch
he had a
Jeter,
lot of point afters, too.
He did. Mitch Jeter, in his career, because he's really only got 3 seasons of kicking at the big level, South Carolina for 2 years. He's at 80.6, so it's a wash, 80.6%, but only 36 career attempts, or you had double the attempts. And Mitch Jeter's missed 3 point afters, but he's 38. He's perfect in 38 PATs for Notre Dame, including all 7 the other day. But that nobody's going to remember him for that if he can't get this thing righted. And there's just no way to conceive that Notre Dame could go all the way without a clutch field goal or a meaningful field goal happening the rest of the way. Now, Marcus Freeman says he still has the utmost confidence in Mitch Jeter. Where are you guys?
He also said the 40, I think it was 48 yards that he missed.
Yeah.
He said, he struck that really well. On TV, the minute it hit, the leg hit the ball.
Floating.
The minute his leg hit the ball, you're like, this has absolutely no chance.
No.
Like, it was just, so I don't know. Like, it's, you would hate for this season, again, if they win on Saturday and they get to the college football playoff and to come all the way back from NIU, you'd absolutely be sick to your stomach to have this season turn or end because of a kicking situation.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
It is. It's absolutely possible.
Because, the question was asked, and I think properly, is Mitch Jeter the best option still? Mm-hmm. And because Zach Yoakum doesn't have the range, and he probably can't be trusted too much beyond 40, but at least he's not hurt. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure Mitch Jeter's hip is fully there. It was cold. It was cold at Yankee Stadium. Yeah. Not going to be a problem on Saturday. Maybe all this goes away. He makes 1 or 2. He's 6 for 11 on the year now, and so it's so hard to remember. But he was brought into the post game after A&M. Right, because he was 3 for 3. He was nails. They didn't have to try a field goal at the end to make that a 10-point game. They did because they believed that much in Jeter, and he had just gotten here. But it's gotten a little tricky. It's gone sideways.
Little dicey.
It's so weird just for Notre Dame special teams in general. It feels like they do the hard things really well, the fakes, the block kicks. But then when it comes to hitting field goals, when it comes to just punting the football down the field, it feels like those are the things that they struggle with.
Well, you're going to get another year out of the big Aussie.
Breaking news.
Unless he goes into the portal. I don't know. Yeah. He already had a brief stop at Hawaii on the way here, but I think he likes it here. But, yeah, he's James Rendell with his mom in attendance the last 2 games. That Virginia game, you almost got your 74?
75.
75. But he's 58, I think. He seems to have made some strides there since the Vegemite was delivered. And because he's been asking for that since we met him in June. But, nobody, he's like, well, where can I get it? Aldi, I don't know. But he's got at least 1 more year, Marty Biaggi said. And so that's interesting because Marcus Freeman's never had the same punter for 2 straight years as a head coach. And it's just a quirky thing to go Sott, McPherson, Rendell, and now at least they don't have to go back in the portal. They've got their guy, and I'm still waiting for the where is the punter going? Oh, it's a sneak.
Oh, my God. This guy, this 6'6", 230 guy, he runs over like 3 defensive backs.
Yeah, he's like running over linebackers.
He's put on another 5 pounds since he got here, and he's growing an inch. They keep feeding him, and he's a nice fella. And
he's a great kid.
And he does not need a helmet. He doesn't need pads. He's proven this. And so he's got those, and I don't see him stopping very easily.
Next up on the Pot of Gold, we bring in our guest spotlight here, Gary Stokan, the CEO and president of Peach Bowl Incorporated since 1998. Safe to say, Gary, this is the most anticipated postseason in college football that you've been a part of as to who's getting in, who's going where, who's a seed, who's this, who's that. It's made for a very, very interesting November, hasn't it?
It really has. I said when the 12-team playoff came online that college football, which is second only to the NFL in fan avidity, would increase in viewership and attendance. And because you can see, as we sit here in mid-November, or late November really, there's still arguably 20 teams that are still in the hunt for the 12th slot. So that means more people are watching TV to see these games. More people are attending college football, and so I think the 12 we'll look back and say this 12-team playoff really took college football to a whole new level of fan avidity as we get down the road here.
What is it about the Peach Bowl, and how much pride do you have in the fact that you were one of the 4 sites selected for the second round game? Like you got, it's a pretty select group that you're in.
Well, I appreciate that. We've worked very hard. We've got great volunteers that really enjoy providing Southern hospitality to fans and teams that come into town. We've got a wonderful board made up of the who's who of Fortune 500 companies like Chick-fil-A and Delta and Home Depot and Kia that are headquartered in Atlanta. And then this is, a lot of media have called it the capital of college football because, we have the College Football Hall of Fame here, but
which you stole from us, which you stole from South Bend.
Not Gary.
I know,
directly.
not Gary, but
Yeah.
but Atlanta stole it from South Bend because it wouldn't survive up here.
Well, that's a story for another time. We could do a whole show on that one. But and I think the fans, there's such a large confluence of fans from around the country that live in Metro Atlanta that we've been very blessed to have all that infrastructure of having the most effective and efficient airport, 3 interstates that intersect in the middle of downtown, so people can drive here rather easily. And you put all that together with a staff that's the best in the business. We've been very blessed to go from what our own newspaper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, in 1998, when I first took over, said, we're a 3rd-tier bowl game when Georgia played Virginia here, to now hosting, this year a quarterfinal game, the national championship game, and then next year hosting the semifinal game. So basically in a calendar year, we'll host all 3 facets of the CFP playoff in Atlanta, Georgia.
Gary, this one of the rare years where Notre Dame's already been to Atlanta, having played Georgia Tech, and at that beautiful stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Roof was open for that one. I don't know if that would be the case for the quarterfinal, but obviously we're in a new era and these things we're still figuring out on the fly, but what do you think the appetite is amongst your planners if you guys end up, Notre Dame wins its way into the quarterfinal and makes its first ever appearance in a Peach Bowl, having already been to town? Does that, I'm sure that kind of gets offset by the fact so much would be on the line.
Well, Notre Dame's been my white whale. I have tried to recruit Notre Dame from when I started the kickoff game back in 2008, and either trying to get them in the kickoff game or hopefully getting them in a bowl game. It's been a little difficult since we hosted SEC, ACC until 2015 when we started in the CFP as a New Year's Six game. But I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Used to listen to Lindsey Nelson after we came home from church on Sundays with the highlights of Notre Dame game, and went up there and won the MVP award at Johnny D's basketball camp when I was in 8th grade.
Nice.
Being a Catholic, half Irish kid from Pittsburgh, that was my dream. So, Notre Dame holds a special place in my heart. I love the school, love what they stand for. Jack Swarbrick's a friend, done a great job. Marcus Freeman's come in, done a great job. Al Golden has won our golf tournament when he was at Miami. Notre Dame's very good team this year. Obviously, Leonard's added a new facet with not only throwing, but, running quarterback to what they've done. They play hard. We'd love to have Notre Dame, obviously, with their fan base. So Notre Dame's in. I can't imagine them not being in the 12-team playoff. Obviously, I'm gonna see them out there at USC. I've never been to the Coliseum for a game. I've been there for the Olympics, but never been there for a college football game. So I'm going to see the Notre Dame USC game on Saturday.
Gary, was there ever a time that you thought you were close to getting Notre Dame for a bowl game or like a preseason game where like we got a chance to get the Irish, and then for whatever reason it fell through?
Not for a bowl game, but for the kickoff game, I had them scheduled with Auburn. And gosh, I can't remember what year it was now, 2010 or something around there.
Mm-hmm.
And the agreement was done, and the SEC, the game had to be on NBC because of Notre Dame's contract. And when the SEC received the contract from Auburn, they disallowed it because they said the game has to be on SEC's TV partner, which was ESPN or CBS at the time.
Ugh.
And so the deal fell apart. But hopefully, I got a few more years. Hopefully we see Notre Dame here one of these years.
I mean, now, Gary, as we're taking a look at the college football playoff rankings, we'll have new rankings coming out tonight. But I was just kind of wondering, kind of some insight with these quarterfinal matchups. The conference champions, they get the bye, they get to go to the quarterfinals. Just how does that all kind of get decided since it's kind of this is the first year we're all seeing it?
Yeah, I think something that people need to understand, I don't know if they've even explained this during the shows on ESPN, but because we're still in year 10 of the 12-year contract that all the bowls signed with CFP, the Rose Bowl will get the Big Ten champion per their contract. So if the season ended today, Oregon, who's number one, representing the Big Ten, would go to the Rose Bowl. The Sugar Bowl, because it's a quarterfinal game, still has a contract with the SEC and the Big 12. So the highest ranked SEC or Big 12 champ, whoever's ranked highest out of those two, will go to the Sugar Bowl. And then us, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, are at-large quarterfinals. And so we will get either the ACC champ, the Big 12 champ, or the Group of Five champ. Because, as you know, all five conference champs get automatic slots. Yeah. The highest four ranked conference champs get the byes in the first round quarterfinals. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you.
I'm sitting here, I get confused easily.
He's easily
Could you
confused.
repeat all of that?
Mike. Stop. Mike.
Well, there's still a chance then Notre Dame ends up with you if it wins its first round game, and then as things fall out. And as things currently stand, because I know we update this every Tuesday and again tonight, but coming off of last week, where would potentially that have left Notre Dame? Who would they have played in a Peach Bowl at that point if they won the first round?
Yeah, the way
game?
I have, and I'm just using the latest AP because that's the latest poll we have.
True.
Obviously, like you said, CFP will come out tonight. Notre Dame would play the Tennessee at home, and the winner of that game would play Texas in the Sugar Bowl in a quarterfinal game. And the way that works out is Notre Dame would be, based on the AP again that just came out, number 7, so they would host a home game. Number 5, 6, 7, and 8 all host home games, and 9, 10, 11, and 12 all go on the road in those first round games.
Well, Gary, I'm rooting for Notre Dame to get to Atlanta because selfishly I also cover Notre Dame men's basketball, and Notre Dame men's basketball plays Georgia Tech on New Year's Eve in Midtown. So I'll take.
Oh, is that right? I didn't
it.
Even look at that.
Yep, I'll take at 2:00 on New Year's Eve at Georgia Tech. So I'll take a Notre Dame Georgia Tech game on December 31st, and then slide downtown and cover a Notre Dame quarterfinal college football game on New Year's Day too.
That'd be a great trip. Ironically enough, if Notre Dame does get here, they're probably practicing, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium or at Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically enough, so that would be cool to have the basketball and football team. It's funny. I created the kickoff game format, and the next thing I wanted to do was to create a weekend where the basketball team and the football team would play the same weekend in Atlanta. So we'd play the basketball game Friday night at State Farm, and then the football game on Saturday, and the fans could come and see a basketball and a football game the same weekend. But I've never gotten that done.
that would have been
Made
awesome.
too much sense.
It did make too much sense.
So fun.
And Atlanta's one of
Great
the
for
one.
the alumni because
Yeah.
be a great alumni trip for people to, go to a city and, come to the city on, Thursday night dinner, Friday, go to a basketball game, Saturday, get up, go to a football game, fly home Sunday. They'd have a great weekend.
Let me add a third layer, a women's basketball doubleheader as well. So you could have, in theory, 3 straight days of, or I don't know if you'd stack it all, but I could see 3 straight days. The hotels would love it.
How much work do you want for Gary?
Why not? He's got
That's
to
great
work for
because the
the
women
shoots
typically
big.
play on Sunday, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Go
that people
Friday,
would stay.
Saturday, Sunday.
I'll
I'll get to work on that.
I know you will. The concept of the bowls, one of the things that's why we've always wanted the people who believe in the system want it to be folded into the playoffs, and it is, was that you guys do give back to your local community so well. And there's also
Right.
One of the cool things is the players come and the coaching staffs and the alumni come to a town that they may have never been to before. Many have been to Atlanta, but maybe not in this realm. And then they go out and they make visits to hospitals and schools, and they do a clinic maybe, and they just do, they in the Sun Bowl in El Paso, they got to being around mariachi bands and Air Force bases, which is all great. How's that going to be folded in? Is it reasonable to consider that there could still be that sort of dynamic community service dynamic when you get to quarterfinals, those that are blessed to be part of the final 8, when you're playing for championship and it really is pro ball at that point?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I thank you for bringing up the charity aspect. We were founded as the 9th oldest bowl game in the country back in 1968, but our mission was to give back. We were the first game founded for charity, and we've kept that as part of our mission. We're the most charitable bowl organization out of all 44 bowl organizations. We've given $64 million to charity and scholarship since 2002, when we really started to make a little bit of money. And we used to carry that on during bowl week, where we would take both teams. You're not supposed to do this, but we would take both teams and put them in the pews next to each other at Martin Luther King at Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Martin Luther King's grandfather and father, and he was the pastor and spoke from that pulpit. His mother was shot at the organ there in the church. And we'd have Congressman Lewis, Andy Young, and C.T. Martin all speak to the players about civil rights. It was basically a history lesson. And I'll never forget when Congressman Lewis, who has since passed away, when he said to the kids, he said, I was in charge of the student movement for Dr. King and the civil rights movement. And on the morning crossing the Selma Bridge, I woke up and I put on my backpack. Well, all these kids, 40, 50 years, 60 years later, have backpacks on, right? Sitting in the pews. And then he said, I put an apple, I put a book, toothbrush, and toothpaste in there because I knew I was going to wind up in jail.
Wow.
And he said, we got to the crest of the Selma Bridge, and Hosea Williams, who was next to him, looked over and saw the state police on horses with bats and rifles and dogs. And Hosea said, John, do you know how to swim? He said, because I'm thinking of jumping over the bridge and swimming in. And John said, I don't know how to swim, and I'm marching over. And so he marched over. We all know the story. It was on the cover of Life magazine, where John got hit over the head with a billy club, had a concussion. And he said, I didn't get picked up by an ambulance. I got picked up by a paddy wagon and was thrown in jail with a concussion. And, by now the kids are on the edge of their seats, right? And, that story was something that resonated with our kids, where they couldn't wait to go up and, touch John and ask him questions. Then Andy Young would talk about, how he was, second in command with Dr. King and some of his stories. And then I said C.T. Martin, C.T. Vivian. He told his wife one night, he said, or one day he said, look, I may not be coming home tonight. And she said, oh, you're going to stay at the hotel? And he said, no, where we're going, where we're marching, I may just not make it home. And so, it gives you a perspective of a living history lesson that these kids, they weren't born and their parents weren't even born to live through that. But I'll never forget, we had one black kid get up and when it was question time and said, I just want to thank you three for doing what you've done, because without you doing what you did, I wouldn't be standing here today. And so that's the type of thing that we used to claim, we're going to live, laugh, and learn great this week. You're going to live great in great hotels, eat great food like Chick-fil-A, get great gifts. You're going to laugh because we had a battle for Bowl Week where we'd have a family feud contest in the College Football Hall of Fame with offense against defense, with coaches involved and players. And every night there'd be a competition to win a belt. And then you had to give the belt back. And then the next night we had another competition, because all these kids want to do is compete. I played basketball at North Carolina State. And when I was a player, that's all, whether it was tiddlywinks or, who was going to get first in whatever, that's what we did. And so, and then the last thing was learn. We took the kids to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where, the kids didn't get home for Christmas, and those kids were never going to get home. And so for the kids, the players, to be able to give those kids some, smiles and laughs during the holiday season, to go through the Martin Luther King experience at Ebenezer Baptist Church, those were all great teaching lessons for these kids to learn. Unfortunately, to answer your question a long way about, we're going to lose all that because we're now in a playoff, and the teams will come in, 3 days before. They'll have dinner, probably on Sunday night. Get into the hotel Monday. They'll practice, have media day. Tuesday they'll their walkthrough, and then Wednesday they'll play the game, and they'll go home after the game because if they win, they got to get ready for the semi coming up the next week. So it's one of the unfortunate things that we're going to miss, but we're gaining some things in being in a playoff situation. So I'm going to miss that part of it because I really enjoyed being a part of seeing the kids open their minds and expand their horizons during the bowl week.
Quarterfinals are played on January 1st, and the championship is January 20th with all the logistics and everything else. Are you going to sleep in those 19 days at all?
Well, we're blessed. The CFP really runs the national championship game. Atlanta's the host city. But CFP, Rich Clark and his team, they do a wonderful job. And so they'll come in and run the national championship game with Mercedes-Benz Stadium, obviously. But, we'll be here hosting a lot of people and looking forward to, showing off Atlanta in the quarterfinal game and then the national championship game in the next year. We've got 2 Aflac kickoff games with Tennessee against Syracuse on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the next day we'll have Virginia Tech against South Carolina, and then at the end of the season we'll host the CFP semifinal. So a lot of games, a lot going on over the next year, but we love what we do, and we're blessed to do it in a great city.
It strikes me, Gary, your era of mid-'70s NC State basketball, you just missed the championship, but you came from Pittsburgh area. You probably knew Joe Montana, and you guys could have been teammates at NC State basketball, right, if things had gone a little differently. He was recruited for that as well, am I right, in baseball?
Well, believe it or not, we were teammates. After we my senior year would have been, I think, his junior year. This was before AAU even started. There was a Hoyle basketball tournament in Sharon, Pennsylvania, where if you look back at the history, that was the greatest high school basketball tournament in the country. And you had pros playing, people that went on to play pro played there. But what people would do is put an all-star team together. And this year, Joe and I were the guards on this team. And we made it to the semifinals of the tournament, and we lost to the North Carolina recruits, which was Tommy Lagarde, Zalagaris, John Kuster, and that group. We lost to them in the semifinals, but Joe and I played together during that tournament. And I still say he's the jumpingest white dude I ever played with.
He had hops,
but it's
huh?
interesting because the other interesting story is Tommy Clements. I was only a freshman, so I wasn't on a varsity then, but he was a senior, I believe, at Canevin, which I went to South Hills Catholic, which is Seton LaSalle now. We were the big rivals, Canevin, South Catholic. And Clements played, and I loved the way he played. I mean, his jumper, he used to get up, foot and a half on his jump shot. He easily could have played, basketball at Notre Dame. He was recruited to play basketball in North Carolina. And as you said, Joe was recruited to play at NC State. And then I played against Dwight Clay in the summer, who was from Fifth Avenue, who went on to play at Notre Dame. So a lot of people from Pittsburgh have been successful up there at Notre Dame, and during that era, we had quite a few. I remember Don Slagansky. I don't know if you remember that name, but he was from St. Basil's. He went up to play at Notre Dame. Played against a lot of guys that went to Notre Dame in one form or fashion.
Gary, we appreciate the time. If everything works out in the coming weeks and Notre Dame does wind up going to the Peach Bowl, come back with us. We'll spend a little more time talking Peach Bowl and Notre Dame football and maybe some Notre Dame hoops.
Well, I would love to do that. I hope to see you in Southern Cal, and I'll buy you a Chick-fil-A if you make it down here for our game.
There you go. Gary Stokan, CEO, president of Peach Bowl, Inc. since 1998. We'll come right back and continue with Pot of Gold right after this.
Sounds good.
Gary, thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
I will
Thanks,
be at
guys.
I'll be at the USC Notre Dame game on Saturday, so I'll look you up in the press box.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you out there. Travel
Absolutely.
safe, and good luck to the Irish.
You too. Thanks, Gary.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, take care.
One hot take from Saturday's game, one score prediction from Saturday's game. Who wants to go first? It's always
I like Jackson to go
I knew it.
okay
because
so
I had my score.
You always have your
I
score.
want to have a good hot take, and I don't want to. I want to make sure it's unique.
Okay, here's the new lead into the segment then. One hot take, one score prediction. Jackson, you're up.
Sounds good to me. All right, my hot take, Riley Mills has at least 2 sacks. I think Notre Dame just brings a lot of pressure, and they just kind of get after Jaden Maiava and just put this game away. Just put this game away as much as they can. Get up early, just put pressure on him. I have 31-17 Notre Dame. I still think it's going to be kind of close, but they're rolling right now. I just don't see. I see them winning this double digits.
My hot take was part of my column on Friday leading into this game. I think Bo Collins gets in the end zone. He says he grew up 10 minutes west of the Coliseum. The only player who lists Los Angeles as his hometown on the Notre Dame roster. They do have Southern California kids, Junior Tuihalamaka, one of them. There are others. But Bo Collins gets in the end zone in his last regular season college football game. Will be his first game back home in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. He scores. Notre Dame 31, USC 14.
All right, so I've tipped my hand because I said I think Notre Dame will trail at some point, and I don't know how far into the game they'll take the lead for good, but I think Notre Dame wins this game, but in a much closer fashion, I think, than most, although it's 7-point spread. 24-20 is what I'm going to go with, and so the hot take, you might guess from that, is Mitch Jeter makes a field goal and does not miss any, and that proves helpful, and he's more than capable. And I was sold at when Marcus Freeman started to simulate how the ball was tumbling.
How is that? Let me say that again.
Well, I guess more like
Show
this.
that on camera this time.
I guess they would have been like that, right? He was showing where he struck. I mean, that was the level of detail, and that put me at ease hearing that and seeing that visual aid of how the ball was flying on the 48-yarder. And so, all right, sure, send him out there. I don't know if I'd send him out for a 48-yarder just yet. Let's see him make something from about 35, 40. But, yeah, USC is dangerous. Their 5 losses are by a total of 19 points.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm really going to get you confused now.
Dangerous. 24-20, though.
Bonus hot take, since it is the Thanksgiving week. Best Thanksgiving side dish. Go.
Oh, geez. Mashed potatoes.
Mike? Easy answer. I'm going mashed potatoes and gravy. It's up to Bernardino.
Yeah,
Look at the
that's-
wheels turning. What do you got?
I have gravy on my mashed potatoes, too.
Stuffing.
There you go. That's Jackson. That's Mike. I'm Tom. This has been our Thanksgiving show. I don't know when we're coming back. Maybe we'll come back next week to talk about USC, but definitely, if everything works out well, we will be back to talk about a college football playoff appearance by Notre Dame. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Happy Thanksgiving.
This has been the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold podcast, your home for insightful Notre Dame football coverage and analysis.